Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Connected Living seminar today, where we're looking at mobilising the Internet of Things. I'm very pleased to welcome you all at this very early hour for a Mobile World Congress Wednesday, so thanks very much. And I'd also like to welcome on stage Chris Penrose, the Senior Vice President of Emerging Devices for AT&T, who will be sharing his vision of what the Internet of Things and connected living will look like in the future. Now, over the last year, the GSMA has been on a bit of a journey. We've been taking a look at the communities around this space, around mobile and how it's going to evolve into the future. And we've been trying to foresee what the key actions are that need to be delivered to have a revenue generating, a successful mobile industry in 2020. A detailed analysis has been complete where we've looked at the trends in the industry. We've spoke to a whole host of industry representatives and worked to define a common strategy that is representative of the direction that the industry wants to go in today. And here at Mobile World Congress this year, we plan to finalise that programme and start the journey of execution towards a hopefully new successful world. Within that process, we identified that there were 4 key pillars. There was personal data, connected living, digital commerce, and Network 2020. Excuse me. And connected living is very much a GSMA's representation of an M2M and IoT world of the future, but trying to bridge that gap between the technology and also the human factor of the life that will be affected by the introduction of this technology. So the connected living program's been driven by the dramatic rise of mobile connected devices that we'll see over the next 5 to 10 years, with that growth expecting to rise to 25 billion, and mobile becoming a key enabler of quality of life services and productivity for enterprises. And it'll become the link between the physical and the digital worlds. We're already seeing a whole host of mobile services which are supporting this industry and creating new innovative ways of doing business. And in a recent survey that's been delivered by the GSMA, we've now realised that there's over 400 mobile operators around the world that are delivering M2M services. We're seeing over 40% of those mobile operators delivering true end-to-end services that can deliver value to the industry. We're seeing compound growth of around 40% over the last 3 years, and it's demonstrating that this really is as part of the industry that is in growth, with even countries having over 10% of their mobile connections representing M2M and not the traditional handset model. And all of this is bringing together a connected life, and all of this will bring together an opportunity for this industry to grow. So we're seeing potential addressable revenues of in the region of $1.1 trillion, and that will be shared across the industry, and we in this room will all have a part to play in realising that opportunity. So I'd just like to welcome up to the stage now Chris Penrose to share his view and AT&T's view on how this opportunity will be realised.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me on this? Or do I need to go here? That's fine. All right, great. It's great to be here this morning, and thank you again very much for joining distinguished colleagues and guests from all over the world. It's great to be here at Mobile World Congress and talk to you from AT&T's perspective on what we've kind of seen happening in this space. And really, I've just got a few slides, but I want to share kind of the evolution and the journey that we've been on at AT&T with regard to really the M2M, connected devices, and the Internet of Things. And so, if we really kind of look, at what's happened and how we got here, we really started actually 5 years ago. We established a dedicated group inside the company to really focus on what are the next emerging opportunities. And if you kind of look at the waves that we've seen happen in this wireless industry, voice was we were selling minutes, and it was a great business for a while, and then messaging was the next crest with text messaging, and then data, as you kind of see on this evolution curve, we're still seeing a lot of data growth, but we really decided, what else do we need to do as we go forward to really make sure we get on the next wave as these other waves begin to crest and are coming down. Where can we find these new revenue opportunities at AT&T? And so we end up, really carving out a dedicated group inside the company to go focus in on this opportunity. And really, there's several big fourth wave, strategies that we've got working right now inside AT&T. Connected car is obviously one. We've made a lot of discussion around that specifically as a vertical inside this whole space. Connected home with our Digital Life product, which is our home security and automation business, is another big bet. We've also done a lot around mobile payments, and really the final one is kind of the Internet of Things and really machine to everything. And really how we kind of look at this from our view is really, at the end of the day, it's really about mobilizing life, and everything's better when it's connected. And really, it starts, it has to be connected, through the mobile operators' networks and/or other different technologies, whether it's Bluetooth or any other type of connectivity. And we really kind of see all these things that are up here, all are amazing opportunities, and really it's truly limitless in what you can do in this space. We were actually talking last evening with some folks about farmers actually connecting pigs. So it's getting pretty far out there, but there's actually a farmer that wanted to actually be able to show that you could actually eat grass that was out of a certain field, so then they could actually make a statement about how their agriculture is better and unique and different. And so they wanted to actually put these devices so they could actually know that those pigs were only eating out of that field, right? So I mean, it is absolutely limitless when you really think about the opportunities, and where we're seeing a ton of success early on, I think are in a couple different verticals. We've seen a lot of success in asset tracking is a big one. Security is another big one that we've seen a lot of work in. And in my space in particular, I get the opportunity inside AT&T to work on a couple of really big initiatives. One being the connected car, also all the wearable technologies are actually supported out of my organization. And there's obviously a lot of buzz around both those items here. And I think there's also a ton of opportunity on, as these different verticals emerge. There's also a lot of how those can actually work in together. And so you're already seeing a lot of activity where wearables are now interfacing with the cars. And so you've got all these different things that are being connected, and then how can we bring those all together and make them work better for the end consumer in businesses to really take their business to the new level. That's where we're focused. And so I would also say that it's not just enough to connect them, though, and this is the other piece, is that at the end of the day, it's about pulling together total solutions that are easy to use and easy to consume and have an impact. And so I'll give an example specifically around the connected car business about what we've done in kind of our journey just in this space alone. So AT&T, we've been doing connected cars, actually, our first one was actually in 2008, and we really started off as basically being pure connectivity to those vehicles when we were, providing our SIM chip inside these vehicles, and it was really a wholesale data model to do safety and security services. What we also did early on was begin to bring in some initial provisioning platforms where you could now have a lot more control about how you're provisioning those vehicles, how you can move them into different states from a trial to an actual active customer. And the other big thing that the carriers have a real opportunity in my opinion, is the billing capability sets that we have. We've got over 100 million customers at AT&T that we bill on a monthly basis, and being able to take those billing capabilities and actually leverage them into this space is something that is really unique. The automobile manufacturers, most of them do not have direct billing relationships, and so this is a skill and an asset that we can bring to this space. I would also say, we've been able to take different billing capabilities that we've learned along the way through other verticals and apply them here. So the example I would say is the Kindle Fire. Early on a tablet or an e-reader where you didn't know that it was actually connected onto AT&T's network. You just bought the book, right? You bought a book. It came down, and there was no mention of any connectivity pricing. It just came as part of the price of the book. Well, now if you'd like to do an audiobook inside a car and you don't have a data plan, can you do the same model? Yes, you can. And so what we're trying to be able to bring out to the automotive community is really all the different billing assets that you can have. And we also introduced some really interesting billing in the United States here, which is called our mobile share plans, where now we're selling large buckets of data, and you can hang all these different devices off those buckets of data. And that truly is unlocking a ton of potential in this space. And we think not only should your smartphone and your tablet be able to hang off there, but your car can also dip out of that same bucket, or any other device that you want to be able to consume data off of. And so bringing the innovation around billing is where we've been historically. But where we've gone is we've really begun to expand to move into a bunch of other places that our automobile partners have been asking for help in. And so they're looking for helps around platforms, around application delivery platforms, speech enablement platforms, and how can we actually play a bigger role in being able to provide those types of services. Apps and content. We've done a whole bunch of work in this space around phones and tablets, but also I would tell you that just taking an app and putting it onto the car is probably not the right answer when we're talking about a safe and secure environment. Apps on your phones and tablets are meant to draw you in. The car is the exact opposite, right? You do not want to be distracted. And so how do we create the desire to create automobile-centric applications first? How do we speech enable those applications and really make it be a safe experience? A lot of work going on in this space. Data analytics is a huge opportunity. You hear a ton of discussion about big data, but to me, it's a lot of great discussion. What are those use cases that are really powerful, that are going to change the way that operators are really going to interact? And so, one of the big ones, obviously, in the automotive space is the ability to drive servicing, back to the dealerships. A lot of times, the car itself they're not making a ton of money off that initial sale. Where that money comes is actually in the servicing activity. And so how can we, in a real-time manner, partner up and actually bring that data to the forefront to then drive servicing back to the dealerships? That's a huge opportunity and a great example of something that's good for the customer, good for the company, and at the end of the day makes it a better experience. And to me, this is just kind of one of many great examples of how we can actually leverage data. But right now, as a carrier, we have a ton of information coming off our networks. How do we partner that information up with our automobile partners to really create new and unique services is another area we're really playing a lot in. FODA, firmware over-the-air updates. This is something we've done historically for years in mobile phones and tablets. But there's no reason the car should not be able to have all those updates over the air. And we talk about the car should actually get better over time. Not it doesn't immediately drop in all value as you pull it off the lot. This car should be able to be updated over the air, and we can also help them. And there's so many different, not just updating head units, but actually getting deep into all the different systems in the car and actually making that happen. And I think that this is a big area of opportunity as we go forward, and really just also being able to pull together all the disparate parties to be able to drive services. These are the types of things that we are really moving ourselves into. And I would say this is one example of a vertical, but I'd say that you can take a lot of these same examples and drive them across many other verticals, whether it's health and wellness or security or any place else. As you really look at how do you bring complete solutions, this is where we really see it moving. And everything once you connect it, you can now do things with it you've never been able to do when it wasn't connected. And how do we then leverage that in a meaningful way? And so I'd say some of the key trends that I would tell you that we're really seeing out there. This is also moving on a global scale. We're really, we've been really one of the pioneers of what we call the global SIM, where we actually are, being able to put a single SIM chip into a vehicle or into any device, have that shipped anywhere in the world. We can light it up on that local network, and make it work and move it through any different state it needs to be in based upon the regulatory climate. This is a huge, huge opportunity for making it easy to do business, and so global scale. We're getting asked to do more and more on a global basis, and also be able to do this across all types of devices. Alternative monetization is a huge opportunity as well. We've historically been a bill for service type of scenario. We're getting into a lot of different things here about how can we monetize differently and take advantage of unlocking true potential through different ways of monetization, and then again using data to drive the solutions. To me, this is one of the biggest areas of opportunity for everybody out there. But these are the big trends we see happening, not only in automotive, but really across all M2M. And we're very excited to be really driving a leadership position in this. And I hope you guys have a great session today. And I'll turn it back over to you, Richard. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chris. And I hope today's session will be very fruitful. We're going to go through all of the different opportunities that we see within mobile. And I think the first area that we're going to look at is going to be how we can use the SIM and how embedding the SIM can really be used to empower M2M services. So I'd just like to welcome on stage Wakana Fujisawa, who is our project director in automotive. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for very insightful presentation from Chris Penrose. As we just saw, the opportunity in M2M market is becoming bigger, and the first session will focus on embedded SIM, and this is a sort of the first building block for M2M. It's different from traditional messaging and subscriber-based services. So there are different requirements, and we believe that embedded SIM is what would enable and drive forward this M2M market. So with that, I would like to introduce you to Ian Pennell, Chief Architect from GSMA.
Hi, thanks, Wakana. As Wakana just said, I'm at GSMA, and I helped lead the program we had with the GSMA operators to bring an embedded SIM specification that was suitable for the M2M market. It helps to a manufacturer to build a car, a manufacturer to build a dog collar, a manufacturer to build a device that helps feed Chris's pigs, and not know where that end device is going to be, but still be able to give that device connectivity. What the GSMA have done, the GSMA members have done, is create a publicly available specification for the embedded SIM. Very much like an ETSI sort of standard. It's not an ETSI standard yet, but it is a publicly available open specification that anyone can use, and it defines the architecture, the principles, all the data flows, everything you need to do to be able to build an embedded SIM. And it provides two very key benefits to the industry. It breaks that link that I just described, the manufacturer and the end user destination, so that you can actually have a device and manufacture it and provision it with connectivity, but not know where the end operator will be, not know where the end country or even the end continent will be. And it also usefully enables the transfer of a subscription during an after-sale market. So it enables the after-sale market, which is obviously very important to some segments, in particular in the automotive. So it means that a device that started off with one operator, even if it's a global operator, can be transferred to another operator. The work we've done, we've had 10 of the largest operators in the world supporting this program, and the largest SIM vendors in the world as well. So it's a collaborative piece of work with broad support. And what I'd like to do now is describe what it is and what it actually does. First of all, it allows the provisioning of multiple subscriptions onto a SIM that's installed in an M2M device, and particularly important, provisioning that first subscription. So that I have a device, it's got no subscription, it's in a factory, I send it to through my points of sale and my distribution channel, it ends up with an end customer, and at that point you can then decide what operator is going to provide that service. It also allows that end customer then to sell that device on, and then the new owner, again, through a subscription that he would engage with in an operator, then change the operator that's installed on the device. And then finally, there are a couple of sort of simple health things that you might want to do to stop a subscription, and the subscription stop is available there, and also perhaps if you're in if you take an automotive scenario, and again you're continually buying your brand new car every 2 years or whatever it is, depending how well off you are, then you can transfer a subscription. What do we have in the embedded SIM specification? We have effectively sort of 3 key elements. We have the EUICC itself, the embedded SIM, which at manufacturer by a SIM vendor, it's still a traditional SIM, a physical thing that is inserted into a device, but it can be inserted into a device and never taken out. And it could be that you never take it out because of a logistical reason, because they're going to be deployed in smart meters and there are millions of them and you never ever would want to touch them in that regard. Or it could be for physical reasons. It could be hermetically sealed into a device. But at manufacture, it's installed into the end user device and it has keys in it that allows at a later date an operator subscription, an operational operator subscription to be installed. You have a subscription manager. The subscription manager is this new entity that we've created that is trusted by the operators, and it sits in the middle and moves subscriptions around. And then finally, we have the operators who carry out their traditional role of providing the connectivity, providing the profiles and the credentials that allow the SIMs to work. And this little diagram kind of makes that point, I think. It actually shows the subscription manager, which splits into 2 roles, and the fact that it virtualizes that link between the EUICC or the SIM and the operator. No longer is the SIM permanently the property of an operator. The SIM is a part of the device. It's the property of the person or the organization, the service provider that owns the device, and the provisioning of that SIM is done through the subscription manager. That means you look at a change in the life cycle model for the SIM card. Currently, you look at a SIM card and it's a very linear model. The SIM is manufactured in a foundry. It goes through various processes within the SIM manufacturer. The SIM manufacturer then has a contract with an operator. That operator's profile is installed and personalized on the SIM. It goes through quite a secure logistics channel, which could sometimes be quite hard to manage, particularly when you're looking at things like cars and things like that and extending that logistics channel to those. And it's distributed and finally activated and used, and finally at some point it reaches its end of life. With the embedded SIM, the EUICC, the model is different. It's manufactured. There's a basic provisioning of the secret keys that enable just the SIM to have a bootstrap process to enable any operator to be installed on it, and then it's distributed. And it's only at that point you then start thinking about personalizing it with operator profiles and usage, and that point is a cyclic process. So you can actually repeat that process many times. So what we have defined and what we're helping the industry to do is enable this much slicker process of provisioning devices in the machine-to-machine market. We're breaking that link between the manufacturer and the end user in terms of connectivity, and we're enabling the resale market in a very strong way. It's a short presentation, but so I've got plenty of time for questions. Anyone got any questions?
how does the numbering operate from one operator to another operator?
There's no fundamental change in the processes that currently exist in regard to that. So a SIM card doesn't actually contain a phone number. It contains an identifier, an IMSI. An operator profile will contain an operator IMSI that's issued and under control of that operator. If you install another profile onto the SIM, then the IMSI changes.
You can override the IMSI.
Yes. In fact, it's not so much the IMSI, you're overwriting the whole operator profile installed on a SIM card. So you're repersonalizing it effectively.
Okay, thank
Just a quick question. We're currently an O2 service provider, so inevitably we have a wholesale relationship with Telefonica O2.
Mm-hmm.
The changes to the machine-to-machine SIM card, do you still see that as being an opportunity for a service provider like ourselves to be involved, or with an embedded SIM, do you see that a lot of that traffic's going to move away directly to the networks?
No, I think you will still have that opportunity, and in fact, the principal sort of market and use cases we were looking at when we developed this were the M2M market, where there were large-scale service providers. So actually, where there's a service provider sitting there managing the connectivity to a fleet or a large number of connected devices, what this enables is you to be able to say, okay, I'm now switching everything that installed base over from Telefonica to O2, for example. Sorry, but between two operators. Sure. And doing it in a standardized way, and doing it in a way that's not fragmented across the whole industry, so that the whole industry supports the same common processes. And we feel that's also a very important point. If this sort of technology fragments, and there's lots of different solutions, then that's going to be a big additional cost burden to the industry, and may actually inhibit the take-up that we would otherwise achieve.
Okay, thank you. Just one other question. Do you see that the contract life cycle will extend or shrink? A lot of the commentary that I'm hearing around machine to machine, if you look at the smart metering project that Telefonica's embarked upon, where the actual device has a battery life of up to 15 years, there's a lot of conversation around the contract length could replicate that 15-year life cycle through this embedded SIM. Do you see that may shrink and follow a model similar to the way that voice and data has, back to a 12-month or 2-year life cycle, if there's an opportunity for this SIM card to be re-provisioned over and over again?
I see that as more of a sort of commercial contractual business issue between the organisations involved. What this does do, though, is that when the manufacturers start building these sorts of SIM cards, they have to build a device that's capable of being out there in the market for a much longer period of time. So if you look at the basic properties of the SIM, the UICC, it's an EEPROM device, and therefore the number of read-write cycles, for example, that the device has to support will significantly increase to allow it to exist in the field in operational use for up to 15 years. So this will certainly, in terms of a manufactured item, be capable of supporting the longer-term contracts and that you will see at M2M.
Okay, thank you.
I guess it's something for future, but just as a matter of interest, who decides to go with who in terms of operators? What's the consumer role in this? For example, for connected car, who decides to go with which operator?
So at this point in time, what we see is that the car manufacturer would be the organisation that would be selecting operators it wants to work with. It would also be selecting suppliers in its supply chain, which would feed back down, perhaps through module providers, through to a SIM provider. And so initially we see those sort of service decisions being made by large-scale organisations like the car providers. As this technology evolves, then obviously we would see it becoming, so you take, for example, the sort of camera market or the dog collar market or whatever, then we would see those decisions sort of being sort of fed lower down or further on into the supply chain until you end up with a sort of perhaps a consumer making a choice. But initially we see it as a sort of a mass market thing with a service provider choice.
Is there provisioning for having multiple operators on one SIM card, one embedded SIM card?
There is the enablement of having multiple operator profiles installed, but only one can be active at the same at any particular time, because the interfaces between the UICC or the EUICC in this case, and the device, the module or whatever it is that it's installed in, are the same as they would be in any other device. So this specification is form factor independent, and therefore we wanted to keep that interface the same, and therefore having multiple active profiles, as we called it, just wouldn't work in that situation. But having them installed is fine, and we can swap which ones are active over the air.
Because what I'm getting at is higher fault tolerance. If you have a situation where it's really mission critical for purposes of redundancy or whatever, just to make sure that you have much higher availability than you'd have on traditional cellular networks.
Yeah, and one of the ways of overcoming that is actually through sort of deals, connectivity deals, roaming deals between the operators. You can have a sort of a national roaming deal that would actually ensure that you get that sort of connectivity as well. I think I've just gone red here, or yellow actually. So someone's going to kick me off in a second. So this will have to be the last question, I'm afraid.
Can you speak a bit about the security model? I mean, part of the reason or part of the assurance that we get when the current chain, that linear chain, is chain of custody, but with this sort of recycling, it sort of introduces a whole new security model, I would say.
Yeah, perhaps I should have wished you to have been the other gentleman who's the last person to ask you a question, but no. Actually, we realized that this was important, and we wanted to make sure that what we were developing was as secure as currently exists. So the embedded SIM is going through a protection profile validation to a level that's equivalent to the same level that's used for the commercial SIMs that are used in NFC, so NFC communication. So that's actually higher than a lot of SIMs that are actually in the market today. So the security accreditation level for the embedded SIM is higher than a lot of the SIMs that are in the phones that you've got in this room at the moment. And that is the last question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Now we'd like to actually hear from Mark Rose, Head of Automotive Consumer Electronics, M2M Business Development, Vodafone Group Service Limited. We'll hear from how you are leading the embedded SIM business. Thanks.
Hi there. So yes, my name is Mark Rose. I work in the Vodafone M2M Business Development Organisation, and as Wakana says, I head up automotive and consumer electronics. I want to speak a little bit today around this explosion of embedded devices, the opportunity that provides for us all, as well as how different sort of devices require different kinds of connectivity. And if we get that right, then we can really drive a fantastic experience for everybody in that ecosystem. So I think it's been the theme of CES, it's the theme of this show. More and more devices are going to be connected. So depending on which analyst report you happen to read, it could be 11 billion by 2020, it could be 20 billion. I've seen somewhere it says it's 150 billion devices by 2020. Who knows, by any stretch of the imagination, it's going to be a very big number of devices that are connected. That could be anything from a watch to a phone to a camera to a gaming device to a car to a tablet to a laptop. Everything will have a SIM in it, and making sure we have the right kind of connectivity in those devices is what we as an industry really need to make sure. So perhaps if I use a connected car as an example, so Actually, within a car, there is a whole range of different services that can be provided on the back of having that connected. So if we start with the emergency call capability, so that will be mandated as part of the European Commission regulation. Due to be October 2015, that may slip, but either way, it's going to happen. And actually, to have a system whereby if you have a crash and you are unable to call the emergency services, that they turn up anyway, makes a huge amount of sense. So to get that system in place, you need a module and a SIM in your car, but that then creates a massive amount of opportunity, which you can then use to drive either revenue, cost savings, or service improvements to end customers. So we talked about big data a little bit earlier. So the amount of sensors that any car has is really quite spectacular now. So there's a huge amount of information about the car and about the environment around the car. And actually, for a mobile operator, you know, in the case of Vodafone, for markets where we have operators, probably 30% of drivers of that car will have a Vodafone phone in the car as well. That means that not only can we have information about the car and the environment around the car, but we also have information about the person who's driving it. So if you combine those two data sets, you have a hugely rich amount of data that you can use, and there are all sorts of services that can provide to improve the experience for the customers, but also to generate revenue on the back of that. Moving on from that, you talked about vehicle diagnostics. So, you know, I think every month we hear about another automotive manufacturer who has had to recall 20,000, 200,000, 2 million cars. The cost that that incurs in doing that is very significant, as well as a cost to the reputation as well. If that car is connected and you're able to remotely fix those problems, then that is a massive cost-saving potential in that space. And as was mentioned earlier by Richard too, being able to understand when a car is likely to go wrong and then direct that to your own service center as an automotive manufacturer, then that generates real revenue opportunity too in that space. Push services, so being able to remotely control your car through an app on your phone. I was in Detroit earlier this year, and it was pretty cold. So it was -20, and that went down to about -40 at one point. So actually, in order to get into your car and drive it in any sort of safe way without dying of hypothermia once you're in it, you need to be able to remotely start that car 15 minutes beforehand. So being able to control your car through some sort of application on your phone, whether that's to start it remotely, whether it's to unlock it, to lock it, to get it to flash its lights and beep its horn if you've lost it in the car park. Again, a great way of improving the service for the end customer on your car. Data-enabled services, so in terms of this, I would say information which we have from the car, which we get because it's connected, and then being able to tailor services to end customers. Usage-based insurance is a great example here, or stolen vehicle tracking. Again, generates revenue, gets a better service to the end customer. Information services, being able to understand where your nearest parking space is, if you're an electric car, where you can charge your car. So all of these things come off the back of having a SIM inside your car, having your car connected. So you're generating revenue, you're saving cost, and you're making it a much better experience for the end customer. But all of these particular type of services use very small amounts of data, and it's highly predictable the type of data that they use. And on that basis, then an M2M SIM is an excellent way of providing this connectivity. The services benefit the OEMs, and therefore they're happy to pay for that data in order to drive these better services for their customer. If we then move up to a different kind of service, so a lot of cars now are looking at streaming entertainment into the car. They have lots of head-up displays, so being able to listen to internet radio or watch videos on the back headrests of a car becomes a real opportunity. That requires large amounts of data, and it's highly unpredictable how much data a customer will use when they take those sort of services. Similarly, what we see in more and more cars is the module in the car being used as a Wi-Fi hotspot, so you can connect any device that you have in that car again. You need to be able to give open internet access, and it's large amounts of data which is unpredictable. So those sort of things require potentially a different type of connectivity because they have some very different challenges. So first of all, if you're providing open internet access, then you have to comply with a whole bunch of regulations. But also, if you're then effectively billing that customer, you have to be able to have a consumer billing system in place. You have to be able to provide support mechanisms if there is any issue with that connectivity. And of course, you have to have top-up capabilities for those cars as well. Now, effectively what that means is if the automotive manufacturer, or if it's a tablet manufacturer, and that's the use case in a tablet, wants to be able to provide those services, then they have to become an MVNO, and that's not necessarily a space that a large number of these companies want to get involved in. Some may, and that's fine, but in a lot of cases, they wouldn't necessarily. At Vodafone, we have a capability called Simple Out-of-Box Experience, and I think with that capability, then we can really address some of those problems for the large automotive manufacturers and other type of organizations, tablet manufacturers as well. So what I'll do is I'll show a short video which explains quite quickly what Sobi does, and then we'll continue after that.
Pretty soon, every device we own is going to need to get online. Tablets, watches, cameras and cars. They're all going to be full of fantastic features that use mobile internet. But this means putting a SIM card with readily available data in absolutely everything, which can be complicated for consumers and a real headache for manufacturers. But not with Vodafone. This is a global SIM that transforms into a local one, which sounds simple but is actually pretty unique. This SIM starts out as a generic SIM that's put in a device as it's manufactured, but everything changes once it's activated. It automatically searches out its local Vodafone or partner network to connect to. The user answers a couple of simple questions, and the global SIM transforms into a local one, enabling the customer to access local price plans, top-up mechanisms, and support services. In other words, a customer can buy a device, take it out the box, and simply connect to the internet wherever they are. And that's why we call it Simple Out-of-Box Experience. So you can see why it's great for the customer. But why is this capability so great for you, the manufacturer? When you're producing devices for lots of different countries, you end up having to put a unique local SIM in each one, which can be costly and complicated. With Simple Out-of-the-Box Experience capability, you can put the same SIM in everything, no matter which country you're sending them to. And because this SIM also comes with a fixed amount of data to get customers started, your device has a great selling point. Not to mention, every time a customer activates one of your connected devices, you will generate incremental revenue. Because here at Vodafone, we believe in sharing our connected devices experience with our partners every step of the way. But these benefits are just the beginning. As the capabilities of connected devices continue to grow, so will the importance of connectivity. Imagine a car that's installed with a connected SIM. It could have a complete built-in infotainment system that does everything from amusing the kids to mapping your route, and could even turn your car into your own personal Wi-Fi hotspot. The possibilities are endless. But to do this, you want machines that speak to each other as easily as we do. And nothing connects devices like Vodafone SIM capability, the little SIM that makes a big difference. Thinking simply, out of the box.
So you'll have to forgive the SIM with the cape on at the end. I think our marketing department got a little bit carried away at that point. But this isn't really particularly around showcasing Vodafone's capabilities. And in fact, in many ways, I think what we're doing with Sobi could be seen as a forerunner to the GSMA eSIM program. It has a lot of similar sort of things around making it easy for people to activate, and a lot of the technology is based around the same sort of standards as well. I think what I'm really looking to demonstrate with that is that if we get this thing right, then we can really make it work for all the players in the ecosystem. So it's a great thing for auto manufacturers or tablet manufacturers because they get a single component which they put in at point of manufacture, so it eases their whole logistics issues. It also gives them a real differentiated proposition in the marketplace, and it potentially generates revenue for them down the line. It's great for the end customer because they get a really simple way of making sure that they can get the most out of whichever device they have bought, and also they get some trial data. And obviously it's great for the network operators as well because we get a new customer on the back of it. I think the other thing that I'd bring up as well is that we wouldn't necessarily have exactly the same sort of customer proposition for every single sort of device that we have. So in the tablet market space, for example, then buying connectivity on a monthly basis or topping up when you know you're going to be out of Wi-Fi access range for a time is a well understood model, and people are used to doing that. If we move into the automotive space, then actually people may wish to have a different way of purchasing that connectivity. They may wish to buy a year in advance. That may actually dovetail nicely with the service cycle of cars as well. or they may wish to add the car as a device to their existing smartphone plan. So there are different ways that you may wish to connect different types of devices. Also with a car, especially in continental Europe, there tends to be a lot of driving across borders, so there may be an element of roaming that gets included in the basic plan too. So I think, in conclusion, you know, this is a massively exciting space that creates a vast amount of opportunity for all of us. There are some things that we have to get right, so we need to make sure for the devices that connectivity is in, we make it the right kind of connectivity, we have the right sort of consumer proposition for those devices, and we get the right sort of user experience. And I think if we can do that, then everybody, when I say everybody, I mean the network operators, the device manufacturers, the car manufacturers, the tablet manufacturers, and of course the end customers, everybody will really win in this space. Thank you. So I think I have exactly 3 minutes for questions, if there are any. Gentleman here.
Sorry, just for clarification, are you then opposing embedded SIM with your SOBI? Is that SOBI a SIM card? Therefore, you're opposing embedded SIM?
Am I opposing it, Zed? Well, no. I mean, the theory around embedded SIM exists currently, but it's not operational. So what we have is a forerunner to it. So the SIM card that goes in is a plastic SIM card. It's an M2M SIM card at point of manufacture, and then it translates itself into a local SIM. So we're not opposing embedded SIM, but embedded SIM doesn't exist as a market kind of offer currently.
Okay, the second question is that, is there an assumption already that M2M is going to be on mobile, public cellular? Because everybody, I guess, is assuming that connected things are going to be all on the public cellular systems.
Is there an assumption that M2M will be?
Because we're talking about connecting things up. Now,
Yeah.
As probably you know, there are many technologies at the moment.
Yeah,
being established. Sorry, my first question was that, how do you ensure interoperability between different technologies if you're talking about not a vertical market, but actually a connectivity across all the devices? It's just a question that I'm in my head I'm puzzled.
No, that's fine. And so at Vodafone we have, obviously we are a cellular company, and the majority of our M2M is based around having cellular connectivity within devices, but through assets such as Cable and Wireless, which we purchased a couple of years ago, we also have a fixed line M2M business as well. So there are different technologies for connecting devices. I think the majority of the M2M business currently runs off cellular, but I don't think that precludes using other technology for connecting devices as well. In terms of how you make sure that's all fully interoperable and how those talk to each other in a sensible way, then you probably have to speak to one of the technical people in Vodafone as opposed to me. So.
It won't work unless there is something that will make it work.
And I'm sure these clever people will find something that makes it work, yes.
Do you consider use cases or application where you have to swap the operator profile very quickly?
Can you expand upon that? So what? So you have to be able to swap from Telefonica to Orange to Vodafone?
Yeah, think of roaming, for instance, when you're driving in a car and you cross the border.
Yeah.
And every time you switch the operator profile.
Well, I mean, with M2M, then roaming is included as part of any M2M proposition. So we would have roaming agreements with 500 organizations across the globe. And similarly, within a particular market, you have in-country roaming as well. So if you go out of an area which doesn't have Vodafone coverage, then it will roam onto other operators as well. So roaming is a way that we kind of deal with that. You wouldn't swap the profile of the SIM onto a different operator on a very rapid basis in that way. I think I've gone red. So if there are any other questions, please do get in touch.
Thank you, Mark. Next up, I would like to introduce Angel David Garcia Barrio, Head of Alliances and New Business Global M2M from Telefonica Digital.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. In fact, I have different hats, and sometimes in the presentation it's going to appear. A part of being the head of alliances and marketing and communications in Telefónica Digital, in the M2M Global Group. I'm also the chairman of the M2M Global Alliance. And some of the slides is related to how we work, using MedSim as an enabler. First of all, of course, we know what's embedded SIM and why embedded SIM. Basically, three different things. First of all, we can, in a certain moment, change or define what's the real profile, the real operator subscription that in a certain moment we are going to have in a SIM card. The second thing is that during the, we have said we are speaking about cars, 10 years. We can change from one operator to the other if it's necessary. And of course, the third thing is that, as we are going to see, there are other possibilities, other cases where at the end we are going to embed, we are going to melt the SIM card inside the car or any other module. And the reality is that at this moment we don't know what's the service or what's the operator that is going to work this SIM card. But the reality, and we are here because we are collaborating, of course, in the GSMA, thinking on the standard embedded SIM. The reality, why we think in Telefónica that we need a standard. First of all, it's to fulfill market requirements. I mean, as we have said, thinking on logistics, having a unique SIM card that in a certain moment we can change from one operator to the other is quite convenient for our customers. They haven't to use several SIM cards from several operators at the same time. Second thing is fragmentation. We have a unique standard we are not going to have in every country due to regulations or regulators. In every customer, a different solution. We are happy to have a unique one. The third one that's quite important is interoperability. And it's not only interoperability between different operators, also between different SIM vendors, also between different devices. I mean, at the end, having a unique standard, the solution and the market we are going to develop faster. Reduce cost, of course, also. If we have a unique standard, we are going to have a scale and we are going to reduce cost. And the second thing that is quite important also, if we have a unique standard, we are going to have only one certification process. Because if we have several services, several ways of doing, we have to certify. We certify all the different SIM cards. Then imagine that we have 30 different systems with multiplies for 4 or 5 different SIM vendors that we have today. Cost is incredible. And the third thing is security. I mean, there was a question about security. Of course, it's, to be honest, the SIM card is an HSM. It's the way or it's where the operator includes our keys to access to our network. We need something. We need the security to avoid any problem with fraud in our network. And at the same time, something quite important is also the data privacy. I mean, the idea of course, nobody's going to have the info of our subscribers. How we started to working in MedSim? Well, it was a long time ago. The reality is that Etsy started 3-4 years ago. The chairman was from Telefónica, O2. Later, we were the first operator that in Carte in France 2 years and a half ago. We presented a subscription management solution between O2 UK and Telefónica Spain and O2 Germany. And later in the GSMA, in Mobile Congress 2 years ago, with China Unicom, and later also, for example, with Telstra. I mean, we thought from a long time ago that it's a requirement from the market, and we have to work on that. We have also, of course, worked in the current situation, the current track, and we are working. We have worked in the definition of the specifications and also in the automotive fast tracks. Of course, and to be honest, and from the very beginning, Telefónica is committed to implement remote provisioning based on GSMA embedded SIM solution. Something that GSMA is asking, or is well going to ask to all operators in the world. Okay, Telefónica will implement it. Why we are using remote provisioning from a time ago? The reality is a part of all the different benefits that we have said. I mean, a certain amount of the questions is, oh, and I can change from Telefónica to Voda to Orange, or of course, it's a possibility, and our customers, of course, they love the possibility of, as I've said, after 3 years contract change from one operator to the other, have this possibility. The reality is that we started working in a different way. What our customers, multinational customers, are asking for? They're asking for a unique service, unique solution all over the world. With these requirements, are not new. I mean, probably you know better than me. They ask for one portal, one unique SIM, one common APN. You know how we are working usually, all the operators. We are using roaming. If we have to provide the same solution all over the world, a regional solution, roaming, of course, is quite convenient. But the reality is that there are certain barriers, certain problems sometimes to provide the services in permanent roaming. It's true. There are several here. First of all, some operators, countries, permanent roaming is not allowed. We have Brazil. Probably is one of the most important examples about that. It's forbidden. Well, in a certain moment, I had a meeting with Anatel, the regulator, and they didn't say it's forbidden. They said that it's a crime. And of course, thinking on the jails in Brazil are not the best ones. I mean, we have to think that in several cases, and it's not only Brazil, Saudi Arabia is the same. I mean, you can't use permanent roaming in certain countries. In other cases, it's not so related to permanent roaming, yes or no. It's about data privacy, or it's to send information out of the country. I mean, as I've said, in several countries, they are not quite happy about that. A quite important thing, we have started speaking about that, for example, in the automotive industry. There is a new trend, there's a new opportunity that is high bandwidth. I mean, we are speaking about infotainment, we're speaking about several new services, 1 gig. I mean, of course, can we provide the services in roaming? Yes. Are we going to be cost effective? Probably not. Is the reality. There are other things like regulations, taxes, and of course also sometimes our customers are asking for something local. I mean, they want a local provider, they want a local solution. Then we decided to work at the same time and provide two different services. And depend on the customer, and depend on the region, and depend on the solution that we have to provide, we are providing both. And we can choose one or the other. One, of course, is roaming, and it works. And sometimes we are using local SIM cards, local subscriptions, sorry, but collaborating with other operators to provide the service in a seamless way. How we are doing? And this is an example. As you know, as I've said, we created the M2M World Alliance. We are 8 groups of operators there, tier 1s, in most of the world. And we decided to provide, as I've said, a unique service, and it's quite important collaborating or using the embedded SIM concept in a collaborative way. If you ask me, is the embedded SIM concept or the technical architecture is difficult, is complicated? Of course, it is, but I'm quite comfortable. We have quite good technical people in all the operators, also in the different partners. In our case, for example, speaking of subscription management, is G&D. We are quite happy with them. There's no problem. The problem is that how are you going to split the market? How are you going to collaborate and go and provide a unique service to the customer and say, hey, don't worry, I'm going to give you a SIM card. You are going to install in the car in Munich. But at the end, independently if you are going to sell the SIM card in Tokyo, in Abu Dhabi, or in Sydney, I'm going immediately to change to the local subscription, but don't worry, you are going to have a unique invoice, you are going to have a unique contract, a unique customer care. For you, it's going to be totally transparent. That's why I'm saying that at the end, we are providing the same customer experience with roaming than with a local subscription. But of course, in this case, we are providing the service closer to the local regulations and the local prices. In this case, there are two things. First of all, yes, we have the solution. It's not a standard solution. It's a pre-standard solution because we launch after the standard, but of course we are going to migrate to that. To finish, as an example, in the automotive industry, requirements: single SIM card, same worldwide solution, SIM embedded in cars at the factory. The SIMs will install before knowing where the car is going to be sold. High volume data applications, local regulation, possibility of changing the telco provider at the end of the contract. We can do it. We are doing now with the embedded SIM concept, or the not concept, service. Then, as I've said, we can think that the subscription management is not only a way to swap from one operator to the other and to increase the churn. It's also a quite good way to collaborate with other operators to provide a unique service, similar service all over the world. And it's not only automotive, consumer electronics, e-health, there are several possibilities there. Then, as a summary about, we believe that, first of all, as I've said, we are supporting GSMA. We are going to launch the embedded SIM service based on the standards. We have the embedded SIM service, a pre-standard, supported with WinD and GND and Jasper. I mean, the customer could access in the same way with the same API or same control center to any subscription around the world of any operator around the world. And of course, as I've said, we think that is a very good way to provide global services to global customers. Thank you. Questions? Fine. I can answer the question about the O2 if you want, or something like that. In this case, of course, in the future, there will be a possibility of changing of the operator using the standard. The second thing is, are we going to use the same to avoid roaming? Totally agree. We are providing services today in M2M using roaming, and usually in all of our solutions we are including roaming, and it's not so necessary to change from one operator to the other if it's something temporary. Of course, if we buy a car in the UK and sell the car in Dubai, and it's a real relocation, we are going to change the subscription.
Hello. So you use a combination of roaming and this kind of semi-permanent switching, would you? So if I were to drive my car between several countries, at what point, say, would you decide to switch my profile on a roaming basis or on a permanent basis?
We have implemented business rules in the Jasper platform in this case, and we define usually with our customer, for example, the car manufacturer say, hey, if this car is going to be in a certain country during X days, or it's going to send over X megabytes, we can swap. We have implemented the trigger and automatically change from one place to the other. Is it possible that in a certain moment in the future could be a business? Yes, I mean, we're in Spain. There are several German people that are coming during 1 month, 2 months. It's a possibility.
But sorry, just as another follow-up question. If I were to then, say, move and I decided to go and live in Germany for 5 years or something, I would remain a Telefonica customer the whole time?
You are not going to know that you are a Telefonica customer. I totally agree in this case because, I mean, imagine I have the agreement with your car manufacturer. Then, of course, in a certain moment, we are going to change from one, in this case, Germany and Spain, from one Telefonica subscription to another one. If we are speaking about Netherlands and you have a KPN subscription, it's going to swap to a Telefonica one. But for you, it's going to be totally transparent, and also for the car manufacturer, because they are going to pay the same. I mean, the car manufacturer is going to know very well what's going to pay in any case. That's why the idea of we are trying that should be totally transparent. And it's something between KPN and us, how are we going to split these revenues. I think we have finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. I would now like to introduce you to Dr. Stefan Petty, M2M Business Development Director, Orange Mobile Enterprise.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. It was very early for you to come, so the coffee will come soon. Let me share with you Orange journey with respect to this embedded SIM. I realized at that stage of the presentations that Ian did a great job in explaining embedded SIM, but I'm not sure it has been fully understood. Raise the questions afterwards, right? We are talking here about SIMs that are remotely provisioned over the air, right? Before we go into that, let's take a step back. Vision. It's always sometimes good to take a refresh. Digital changes. You are all very familiar with that, right? But I'm trying to convey and to share with you how this journey brings us to this discussion and me sharing with you our M2M journey. The world is becoming social. No need to mention that, right? Mobile. Mobile, it's humans. Right? We travel, but machines as well, right? Machines get connected, the same as people. Machines get social, I'm not sure, not yet, maybe, we'll see. Cloud, because you connect yourself, you connect machines, then the data does not have to be carried by yourself inside your luggage, right? You want to store them somewhere. Now, once you have the ability to bring your data somewhere and to store your data, it's very important that then you think on how can you work on this data to make this data more valuable. That are the digital changes that operators and all the community that is here at the World Mobile Congress is addressing, right? So now coming back to the, our customers, okay, well, Stefan, I understand these changes, but can you help us, you operator, to take advantage of these changes, right? Can we make money taking the opportunity of the changes, right? Can we develop new services for our customers? Can we differentiate? There is here a part for the employee, but that's for the mobility part, for humans. Can you help us to transform the data into something that actually is going to create something new and new value? This term value, I'm going to come back to that because that is the real focus on my presentation. So, M2M, where did we start with? Long time ago, we had to put, your phone SIMs into machines, but it was not suitable for the logistic. So we had to create new types of SIM cards, and the SIM on chip or the soldered SIMs were the starting point, right? So, of course, for the industry, what was very important is that, okay, if you provide a soldered SIM that is suitable for the manufacturing, then it has to be, it has to connect to all the networks, right? So you have to secure that you can access to global network. That solutions was aimed to be a one-stop shopping. When you are a manufacturer, when you are an industry, you don't want to talk with all countries in the world, with all operators in the world. More than 500 operators, right? So you want to secure that you have one solution that can address the market, that can access, connect to the world, and you don't want to talk to all of them, right? And also, because that are your devices that are connected, you want to see what's going on, right? You want to access, you want to look at what are my machine doing, right? So that was the generation 1 of machine-to-machine, right? That is not what we're addressing today. Today, embedded SIM is about the next generation of machine-to-machine devices, right? Connectivity and solutions. This is where we started, and I assume this is your life, right? I mean, for those who are in machine-to-machine. So we have been pushed with telecom industry to change. There are a few reasons why we have had to make changes and to evolve. One of them is local regulation. So I put some logo here. Maybe they will not be suitable for this embedded SIM. That's our homework as operator, to make sure that it complies or it's fulfilled. But the bottom line, it has been raised by Angel and Mark, is that you want to have a global business. You want to ship your machines everywhere in the world, but you have to face with local regulations. In the automotive space, these are the flagship. So if you're not familiar, well, there is the European emergency call that is a requirement, and they specify some technical stuff that we have to comply, that you, car manufacturers, have to comply with, right? Same in Brazil with Denatran. In Russia, it's going to be the same. Not to forget the basics, tax reasons. It has been mentioned before. And something that I'm not sure it's well understood today, so I'm going to say and emphasize that. It was talked by Angel and Mark. Just the simple fact of selling data access. Data access is a regulated service. I mean, this is something that maybe is not understood in the industry. But if you open the space of someone accessing to the world of connectivity, regulators put some rules. You have to know who is doing that, for which purpose he's doing that. He wants to be able to trace back. So there is this legal preemption and stuff. So any data access is a regulated service. Just keep this in mind, because we as telecom operators, of course, we fulfill these regulations. Now, if you are doing machine-to-machine and you want to offer to your customers this kind of services, you will have to cope with these requirements. So coming back to my presentation, local regulation have forced us to evolve this global business into something different. First trigger. Second trigger, appetite for connectivity. You know all that, but this is coming into the machine industry as well. Why? Because you have humans behind machines. Automotive is a great example. A driver, passengers, they have the same needs inside a car as they have in their office or in their home. So the appetite of connectivity is exactly the same. So what's the implication? The implication is that the global model that we built before, economically wise, is not sustainable any longer. Why? We come back to this roaming. Roaming is not an issue. Roaming is a specific business model that has been built in one circumstances, and in machine-to-machine environment, we have to cope with that. And we have to enable new business models in order to be able to help businesses to provide very rich services through machines. Sobe is one example, and embedded SIM, to our viewpoint, is also an enabler to access to these new services, right? So we had to evolve from original service to this new machine-to-machine solutions, local regulations, appetite for connectivity. More important to my viewpoint, new business models. That sounds like very PowerPoint stuff, but actually it's very important. And I will be happy to take this discussion further with you, but I'd like just you to take this into your memory. Because humans drive consumptions, they decide which services are sent through the machines. We must, as operator, enable our business partners to become much more agile. Agile in technology, but agile in business. This global M2M model, which was the starting point of my presentation, appears to be quite rigid. And it is our homework, right, to make it more flexible. There are a lot of tools and tricks to make it more flexible, right? But we believe embedded SIM as the remotely provisional SIM is another enabler to make more flexible business models. To give you an example, because I'm not sure this is quite clear, but it's very profound, right? This is really structuring. B2B means business to business. We sell data to a company, and the company, well, pays us, that's it. And they use the connectivity to monitor machines, for instance, right? Inside, you have the automotive services. So these B2B models work very fine, right? When you talk about remote diagnostic, even connected navigation, traffic information, that's perfect, right? Now, when you talk about internet radio, for instance, I mean, assuming you want to deliver this service, right? But if you want to, this is no longer the same model. As Mark said, this is unpredictable. You have no clue what the user is going to do inside his car. Is he going to use the service or not, right? And also, you want to charge, you as a company, you want to charge the consumer inside the car. These are what we call B2C, B2B2C. Bottom line, no need to go into the details. The bottom line is that if you want to sell something, you have to cope with the way that people are willing to pay you, right? Maybe they want to pay you every year. Maybe they want to pay you as they go, as they use every day, whatever, right? You need to be flexible in order to adapt to people's wish, right? And culture. And in each country it can be different. And for each service it can be different. You have to adapt your business model, right? Embedded SIM is one new tool to bring agility in these business model creations. That was the last driver, and to my viewpoint, this is the most important one. And this is the reason why Orange engaged into this embedded SIM journey. So, how do you cope with this? Embedded SIM, Ian from GSMA explained a bit about the technology. So I'm not going through technology any longer. I'm sharing with you how we Orange, well, organize ourselves and we put our vision into action so as to deliver the thing. First, embedded SIM means to put local profile into your machines, right? So let's face the truth. We are not all over the world, right? We are just Orange. So even we are great, whatever, we have to team up. Partnership is great. We have no other ways. It's a revolution for us. Machine to machine is creating this kind of revolution. We have to work with our old competitors. For Orange, we call that Global Machine to Machine Association. Yes, another machine to machine association. Not yet, another one. And this is a profound relationship that we try to engage and to create between other companies, strong companies, and try to engage into the same visions. First, this is GMA. Bell, SoftBank, TeliaSonera, Deutsche Telekom, Telecom Italia. We have the footprint, which is really great. It's going to expand. But the bottom line is that we are sharing a vision of how the market evolves and how we have to address it to cope with the business requirements. and that's the team. Now the tool, right? Once you have the team. The tool is the embedded SIM. Again, I'm not going to go through the technical details, even though I will be pleased to address any question about that, because it's extremely important that we get all educated in what is this embedded SIM. Now, at the end, what is it we create? We create an ability to remain global, so to be in an enterprise business, companies to be a one-stop shopping with one SIM, one perceived network, one platform, one contract, one business process. Bottom line is, in B2B, you need to be a partner that is very simple to do business with, right? But because of the triggers I mentioned, regulations, appetites for connectivity, agile business models, you have to break down this unique center point into local operations, right? For the benefits for car manufacturers, because that was the topic of this first session, right? But businesses that would engage into this journey, it's overall to propose all of that with a lower total cost of ownership, so TCO is total cost of ownership, optimize the manufacturing processes, help to bring new services to the market, right? And create new revenue. And of course, ensure that whatever you do, you can scale up. For the customers at the end, right? So the drivers, the passengers for the automotive case, it's to ensure that they don't perceive this complexity. That's very important, right? Because we want to engage them into consuming services, into enjoying services. They don't have to perceive the complexity, right? Of course, then you provide the same value proposal that is from the beginning, real-time connectivity, and so on and so forth, right? The last one is not the least, right? Business models relies on the cost structure. Embedded SIM enables localization, which enables to reach local price, right? Of course, that's very important. Now, the thing is that this is not the ultimate goal. It is very important, yes, but that's not the end of the journey. I'll come back to that. So, value creation. Oh, it's already red. I'll take a question afterwards. I like the sound. We've done technical solutions to enable data to flow. But that is not the end of the journey. We evolved, and the embedded SIM is a tool to make a new solution to make this more affordable. But that is not the end of the journey. The end of the journey is value creation. I'll skip these slides, and I'll be happy to take any question on that. But we are working on that. We try to facilitate data access, data management, so that you can focus on services. And that would be my last slide. How simple is it now? Embedded SIM is a tool that enables us to cope with these new requirements. One of them, which is what you perceive, is affordable connectivity. Okay, well, now I raise the question. It is here. It is out there. We have the solution. Operators that were here today, they tell you that we have the solution. So now, let's focus on the real business. Creating services, appealing services. Differentiate yourself, right? Between embedded and phone. Engage consumers. Bottom line, let's focus on creating value. Thank you very much.
No, we can take some if there's only. Do you want to ask if there's one? 2 minutes.
I got 2 spare ribs minutes. So if you have a question, then I'd be happy to take it.
Yeah, I have a question. The embedded that always require you to have agreements with other companies. It would always have to go through an operator, or a concept where somebody who is not an operator is a provider of the embedded SIMs.
So that's a very good question. It's a tricky one for an operator, right? So embedded SIM means that we define an environment which is secure. There was the security question raised, where you can, over the air, provision an operator credentials, which is like your HERT, right? It's like your safeguards, right? So that is done in this. So your question is, who is going to change that, right? Who has the keys to decide? These are business processes. This is really depending then on operators and how we set up ourselves. I'm going to be very transparent with you and very honest. It is not in operators' interest to make this change from anyone's hands. Why? Because our business model, again, I'm coming very down to rationals. We have built a business model, and this is based on the understanding we have on people's behavior. If this behavior changes, then we have to adapt our business model. It's very profound. So these kind of decisions, we'd rather to have it. Now, I think from a quality service point of view, I think it's in everyone's interest that operators stay in the action lever of making this connectivity provisioning. We are delivering the service. We are liable with respect to the law, with respect to yourself, in terms of delivering connectivity services. So I really think that this is in everyone's interest that we stay in control.
Do you think that just a quick follow-up. So do you think at any point the regulator is going to intervene and force on the industry to open up a bit? Because right now we're going to run the same situation, right? Agreements have to be negotiated between global operators in order for there to be service. Do you think at a certain point the regulator will intervene and will force you to open up the market to perceivably actors who are not mobile operators?
So first point of your question, I don't know, right? I don't know what they think. Open up the market, it is open, it's a standard. And what are we talking about? Today you have your phone, you have a physical SIM, you are free as a human to take this SIM out and to go somewhere else. We are just working on something that eases processes for industries. That's all. So we are just making things better. We are not making things worse. So I don't think that there is any need to intervene in any way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefan. Next seminar, realizing the potential of M2M, operator value, and monetizing services beyond connectivity. We'll look at what big data opportunity there is, and we'll hear from two speakers. And we'll also hear from Renault about what they're doing to in terms of billing and charging challenges that exist for automakers. So I would like to introduce you to Tom Taylor, Vice President of Advanced Strategy, Verizon Telematics.
Thank you. So what I'd like to talk about is how value can be generated. And the reason this talk might be interested is that the company I was with is called Hughes Telematics. We are a telematics service provider, and we were acquired by a carrier, Verizon. And so we have two perspectives here. One is a telematics service provider for the automotive industry, and then how that affects from a operator's perspective. So how do we generate value? Let's see if we can figure that out. So to get value, like we heard from the last speaker, you have to create value. So when we talk about the Internet of Things, machine to machine, most of the time we think about it all as data underneath here. We've heard that word a great deal about data coming up from all these devices around the world. Raw data is not really that useful. However, if you apply some analytics to that raw data and move up to the information level, now there's something of value here. because I can give information to different companies, to operators, to consumers. Now they can actually change their behavior potentially. We heard about that from several speakers. Is one of the big concerns about machine to machine and people moving around is how are the services going to be used? Well, raw data moving up into information will allow us to help figure that out. And then the peak of this is where we then become knowledgeable. Now we really know how services are going to be used. We can think about how we change networks. We can think about how we partner across the world because we have a basis of data analytics that takes us from data to information and then up to knowledge. So what I want to do is I want to give you a couple of examples here. The first one is about spreading data as widely as possible. And so what I want to talk about is start with one data source and use it to multiple industries. All right, so I'm going to focus on the automobile. That's the business that I work in. We've heard a lot about the automobile. And so what I'm going to see is how we can take data up from an automobile, provide data analytics to that, and then potentially move that into a retail space or into a government environmental spaces or to media, location-based advertising, or to automobile makers. And so one of the ways that we can think about that is that, well, this doesn't look so well up there, is that we can use some of the data that we have in our aftermarket side. So there are lines that connect this up to show that we have data from a great number of automakers and a great number of their particular vehicles. How is this done? Well, we're particularly taking this data, for this example here, is based in the United States of usage-based insurance. So if you're not familiar with that, usage-based insurance is a new movement within insurance companies around the world, which is that basically our insurance should depend on how much we drive. If we drive very little, our insurance should be less. We should get a discount there. And potentially if we drive a great deal, even if we are a perfect driver, there's a higher probability that we'll be into an accident because we're just on the road more. And so you may have seen some of these devices here. There's two views of what we call a dongle that plugs into an automobile. It plugs into the onboard diagnostic port. So any vehicle, does not need to be a new vehicle, any vehicle that is built after 1996, we can use that in that particular vehicle. And in the service that we provide, you notice that over there on the right is a device that clips onto the visor in front of the driver so they can actually make calls. They can make emergency calls or roadside assistance calls, or they can make hand-free dialing calls. So what's interesting about this is used for the insurance industry, okay? Because what the insurance industry wants to know is they want to know how the driver drives, okay? And that if I drive potentially at 3 o'clock in the morning, that is a relatively high risky time to drive. If I drive at 10 o'clock in the morning, that's a low risk to drive. If I drive largely in urban areas, there's a higher risk there because there are more vehicles on the road. If I drive largely in rural areas, it's lower risk. And so the insurance companies are really concerned about how the driver drives. That's where the basis of this data is. But if we take that same data and do data analytics to it to come up with other information, we can go to the car maker, the automotive OEM, because interestingly enough, they don't really care how the driver drove. They care about how the vehicle performed. And think about this as an automotive manufacturer, as you can have historical data about how the car actually performed. So one of the things we often talk about is the fuel efficiency of our vehicle. Often when we buy a vehicle, it has a certain fuel efficiency associated with it. So in the United States, that's typically measured in miles per gallon. I buy a new vehicle because I'm convinced that I'm going to get 25 miles per gallon in that vehicle. Does the vehicle actually perform that way? As the vehicle ages, does it maintain that fuel efficiency or does it get worse? If it gets worse, how much does it get worse? What could I do about that as an automotive designer? That's information that is taken from basic data from one industry, moved into another. We heard a little bit about the automotive dealers, people who sell cars. They might want to be known how a particular vehicle was driven. Was this car driven very aggressively? If it's driven aggressively, I may need to change the brakes on it before I sell it. That would be interesting information to know. So you see in this particular example, it is data from one particular industry, the insurance industry, and then been moved out into other industries. And these are just examples of that. But you get the idea of data from one industry moved out into other industries. So here's some examples of what this shows is that I can, as a consumer, another way of using the data is that this is now information about my drive over a week. And what you can see here is you can see how many miles that I drove. You can see what my typical trip was. In this case, it was 13 miles. You can see what my maximum speed was. That would be a nice thing to know. In fact, this would be another information service potentially for family members. It could be as a parent, I would like to know how my young driver is actually driving. Do I know what their maximum speed is? That would be useful information. I can also see how the vehicle is performing. In this particular case, you see on the graph that I not only get the combined fuel efficiency, miles per gallon of 21, but I also see a breakout of how efficient the vehicle is in city driving and highway driving. Hey, that's pretty useful information in terms of how I might want to think about how I use my vehicle, how I spend for petrol. Here's another example of a particular car that over a very short period, in this case over roughly a month, over 30 days, the check engine light, you may be familiar with that in your automobile. It's the little thing that comes on, and every time it comes on, you have no idea what it's telling you. Okay? That's the check engine light. In this particular case, what we can do is take that raw data, the check engine light is on, transform that into information, and what you can see here in this particular vehicle, we had a cylinder misfire and a system too lean and then a cylinder 8 misfire. If you're not familiar with that in the automotive space, that means the car is not running properly. That would be kind of a nice thing to know. I would like to know potentially as a consumer, because now I need to go take that into a dealer to have that fixed. Wouldn't that be nice if the dealer had this information beforehand? So potentially they may be able to order parts for me. They may give me a better customer experience. And potentially as the car manufacturer, I might want to know this because I'm thinking about changing the design of my engine for the next generation vehicle. I'd like to know that this particular vehicle, when it hits 5 years of age, there seems to be a high wear in how the engine happens to work. So you can see an example of one piece of data set used in lots of different kinds of markets where we apply some data analytics to generate real information. Here's another one. Another simple example is in terms of how the vehicle was driven. This is revolutions per minute. That's how fast the engine is run. That would be a nice thing to know. You'd like to know if you were going to buy a car from somebody, whether they used it at very high RPMs or potentially if it was driven very carefully. So now for this last example, what I want to do is I want to show you potentially how you can do multiple data sources to multiple industries. So the first example was just data out of the car. Okay, well, what happens if we take the combination of data out of the car and what a wireless operator would have, potentially information out of a mobile phone? So here we can see that I can potentially take data out of a car, I can take mobile phone data, I can potentially bring in other data like weather data that might affect our behavior a great deal. We might see that people drive more and shop less when bad weather. It'd be a nice thing to know. I can put all together very interesting information potentially to government services, to location-based advertising, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show an example here of mobile search history and automotive location data. So imagine that I'm out with my wife, Mary, and she is going to look for shoes. Okay, you recognize this scenario, is that often you would use your mobile device to do searching as to where I might find some stuff. So in this particular case, Mary is looking for a new pair of shoes. She uses her mobile phone and finds a couple of pairs of shoes that she's interested in, and of course, they're in 2 different stores. All right, so she's going to have to go there. How is she going to get there? With her automobile in this particular case. So she drives to the first store, tries on the pairs of shoes, and they're just not right. They just don't quite do for that. Okay, so I have to get back in the car again and go to the second store. So we now drive to the second store. She tries on another pair. Doesn't like those either. But while she's there, she actually sees the perfect pair of shoes that really catches her eye, and she buys a different pair of shoes than she originally looked at a second store. So what you can see here is, think about this from a location-based advertising perspective, is it's an incredibly rich set of data because we saw how with the mobile phone, how she started her search, what caught her interest, what she was looking for, other things that were part of the search. And then when we bring the vehicle in, we actually see where she went. Okay, because if you think about it, into the second store where the shoes were bought, well, we knew that she bought shoes in the second store, but we didn't know that she went to another store before there. That's incredibly valuable information. And so you can begin to see how you can combine in multiple data sets to come up with a really rich perspective about how data might be used. So here's an example of a journey through a particular town in the USA, and you can see that you can combine in information. And one of the things that is the point of this chart is that mobile phones are really good for search history, but locations are kind of approximate. I mean, that's the intent. Automotive data is really good about taking you from A to B and has much more accurate location information. Often location information off the mobile phone will be just tower triangulation, so it's not very good. Sometimes it'll be GPS. Automotive is always GPS, so it has much higher significance in terms of that. So you begin to see the combinations of different devices, different sets of data moved into analytics for different kind of information. So in the last couple of minutes, does anybody have any questions? Yes? And by the way, I do know a good place to buy shoes. So.
I have a question here. When you say automotive gives better location, that's true because it uses GPS location. But sending GPS information on the data on the network, isn't this like extensive usage of data on the network, on the operator?
So a very good question. In the automotive space, often what we do is, one, we do a lot of data compression in our company. So data is compressed a great deal, so it's very efficient sending it up. And for a lot of what we did, in this examples here, we actually only send the data up after the trip is completed. In other words, we don't continually send it up. Because in the marketing example with the shoes you saw, I really don't need to know real time where she's going in that particular example. I just need to know where she went. And so when I can package it up in that sense, I can do a lot more efficiency of sending the data up on the automotive side. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Excuse me, sorry. Now I would like to introduce Laurent Wallace, Head of Connectivity and Multimedia from Renault.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So we are coming from a metal company, so now moving step by step to a connectivity company and service provider. So we'll give you a little bit where we are today about these topics and where we want to go, especially for the billing aspect. So first of all, some key factors for the company and where we are. This is maybe basic, but interesting to come. Okay, should work, yes. So today when you speak about Renault, in fact, we are not alone in a single company, so you should know. And it has moved. Now the alliance with Nissan is about 15 years old. And, but some steps are coming, I will come back. You know the three brands of Renault, Dacia and Samsung in Korea. And we have also a lot of cooperation like Daimler. You will very soon in Geneva see the practical situation of this cooperation, and after that in Russia also. You can see this multi-brand and cooperation as just selling car, which are single object. Practically, connectivity is hugely involved in all this partnership. Today we are selling cars that Renault is manufacturing with connected services with multi-brand already. So you can see a traffic, for example, built in Barcelona, for example, with connectivity within the car, sold with Volvo Trucks brand or with Nissan or General Motors. So already we have this issue of making a single product but shared with multi-brand and connectivity. And what is coming very soon is Renault, Nissan, and all our partners. We will increase a lot the partnership, and the single solution connected vehicle will have to be shared with all the brand and all the country and over the world. So the few key figures for our side, only as a Renault brand, so covering 118 countries, 2.6 million vehicles. If you consider the full alliance, we are over 8 million cars, and few facts about market shares. A few things for the people who don't know much about cars. So what are the latest events we had? We are not a premium brand. We are mainly rated to B segment and below. So we had the latest launch of Clio 4, Capture, the renewal of Duster, and clearly Clio 4, Capture are a clear step up in connectivity. I will come back. They are in very good position. We have key point for all over the world with Duster, which is the Renault most sales car, and also with a very big link with connectivity. We have the EV market where we are a key leader with Zoe, which is the first selling EV in Europe, and with a very, very high rate of satisfaction from our customer. Okay, and connectivity is quite highly related to that, because as you should know, by charging, you have a mobile apps to your mobile phone that you can check charging, launch charging, see the state of charge of your car, and so on. So without connectivity, EV is not possible today. And LCV, so maybe the Kangoo is a little bit less popular than Zoe in EV market, but practically this is a car that really matched to the market, because there is a huge demand for that, and also it's a connected car. Okay, just one more word. Compared to all other M2M or connected device, the car is not the same price. Okay, when you buy a car, it's not the price of a cell phone, and as an effect, the age of our customer is completely not the same, the average age. Okay, so roughly we are largely over 40 years old for the people who buy a new car. In terms of customer experience, you are managing quite a different kind of customer. Now going to connectivity in Renault, so you should know that we have two main connected devices today in our car. Historically, we have what we call the Carmina TomTom that you can see on the left on the Laguna dashboard. It is connected, okay, and we already have sold over 1 million of this connected device. And now, since very soon, almost 1 year, we have launched, I would say, the very well-known Airlink system together to our Clio Capture and all the brand, and also with a specific version for the EV. And this is with more advanced function on connectivity. So we are clearly not before launching, but we already have a certain experience of, and we are learning every day about what is to launch a connected car and having feedback from the field. So this is a global picture, but we are not at the end of the story. So clearly our roadmap is to have embedded SIM. This is the way we think it's the way to go for our sidecar maker. Why? First, because of quality. We think quality is a key point for our customer. So we are in position to select the best connectivity solution for our customer. It is fully integrated, validated, so we know what we give to the customer. Okay, it has been validated, and it's not something that we sell the car and then another device is connected and we cannot manage. We want to manage, and we manage, and we think it's a key point for our customer. We want that this is simple for the customer. As I said before, our customer is quite old when he buys a new car, so it should be very, very, very simple. And this is clearly something that we knew before, but in the last months of experience with our selling cars and interface with customer, this is the very big key factor. Okay, if it is not simple when you deliver the car, when you want to launch and sell the services, you are dead and you have a very low take rate. And efficiency. So as I said, for sure today, when you buy the Renault connected car, you turn the key, it's connected. You have nothing to pay. In addition, you have nothing to ask, nothing to validate. Almost so very, very simple. So that's why embedded SIM is clearly the solution for us today. But I just speak about the advantage. There is some disadvantage, and the disadvantage is Most of the services we have today in our car are low bandwidth data, okay, mainly car-centric. But as said by many people before, there is a huge demand from our customer. If not the buyer, but the son of the buyer, sometimes he wants high bandwidth solution for video, for music, for web radio, and so on. And the solution with embedded SIM today we have, and the business model we have, is not really compatible with high bandwidth. So we think that speed billing is one of the solutions where we are strongly pushing to go in order to remove this weak point. So this is a picture of where we are today. So you have the SIM inside the vehicle, as I said, and this is a contract we have with the MNO, and then the driver is using it with our store, where he can buy all the apps, all the services. And in parallel, as everybody, he has a direct contact with his mobile phone with another MNO. So it is completely separated. So we think that the target is to do something like that. The target of the picture is not to go to the technical point, but clearly, as a car maker, where and what kind of solution we want to offer to our customer. So we see two kind of category of connectivity services. So as already known by you, I think, and discussed, all the car-centric, low bandwidth services. So the first picture is about like CRM. We have the Coyote. We have all EV. ZE is a zero emission, so EV vehicle. We manage, and there is no big issue. And then we have the high bandwidth with internet or web radio and so on. And clearly, we think that to have a split in the billing, in the invoice, that we keep the invoicing to our side OEM for the car-centric data. And we want to have this routing of billing directly to the standard mobile phone subscription of the consumer for all the high bandwidth data, because clearly we will not be able to support this, and it is completely not compatible with our business model. Sorry, always coming back. Okay. Same. This slide is not, the purpose is not to show and to address exactly the technical solution. This is more to show as a customer and how it should work. So you see the car in a certain country. So we are going through the local MNO because you are in this country, and then addressing all the car-centrics on the right. Data directly coming back to our system through our contracted MNO-X, and then to our OEM pre-existing service platform as we have today. And then in parallel, the second flow for the high bandwidth going to third party. We just mentioned local breakout. I will not be the specialist to explain you what is it. I think you know much better than me what is it. But we think that today there is opportunity, a technical opportunity that makes that possible to establish. Okay, so we think it's a good time to do that. Another key point for us globally in this business and in this technology is security and privacy. A car is not a cell phone, so a car can be a dangerous thing. So we really want to make it secure. And the weak point potentially on this solution is that we have many flows with many operators, and we have really to secure that all the car side should not be and should be protected completely to all internet activity that can have bad effects in safety or privacy. Okay, coming back to something I already said, clearly how to make it and how it should appear to our customer. Clearly, it must be simpler. The simpler is the better. So the customer experience really is a key point for us. As I said before, this is really what we experience today with our several thousand of cars that are connected with Airlink. So we want to simplify the customer life. The step up to split the billing when you buy the car and you want to connect your own cell phone subscription should be very simple. We have to avoid any manual process, and this is really another experience we have. We have today a very simple process just to activate the services in the car. The take rate, just how many cars are really activated. We request today one push, that's all, to the customer. And today, just this one push is very difficult to get from the customer. Because when you have a 55 years old people which are not so accustomed to cell phone and so on, they just have a display and they don't know why I have to push, I don't know. So I switch to navigation and then I don't use my connectivity. So it's a really key point to have that. Also what we learned, another example is today we have capability to update the software over the air or by other way. Few people do it because the process is quite complex for them. Okay. Pairing should be simple and automatic for sure. And all the aspects for the agreement should be at the same time. Okay, so we request you that you should be the support for us OEM to really have this simple solution. So we are pushing for split billing. We think that the context today is good for favorable for this evolution. There is some European regulation. We know that the roaming cost should be highly reduced. We think that in your business there is technical opportunity that makes that possible. So again, we want you to support that. Also, as we know, so LTE is rising more on 3G and 4G, and also today the people in the business are changing their infrastructure, and we think that makes the time that you can make the change that we can move to this split billing solution. Okay, and so today with M Automotive Group in GSMA, so we are with Philippe Dubois today. We are pushing highly for working on that. We think the maturity today is not at the same level that other subjects presented today, like remote provisioning. And we really want to work together in the GSMA with all partners to have quickly technical solution, specification, clear process that allows this to work very, very shortly. So we don't want to do it just by ourselves. It must be for sure highly standardized and a global solution. So yes, almost short of time. So clearly today there is a proof of concept going on with M Automotive Groups. We already have made a step 1. Step 2 is planned today with clear detail action. I will not go into detail. So, but the clear message is we want that get the support of all partners, not only OEM, to move on that, because we think this is a key success to have a good business model and solution to really step up in our connectivity. Again, the connectivity we have today is at a certain level of maturity. We are learning of this maturity, technically, business model, but there is a lot of steps in front of us to make it work and make it profitable for everybody. Thank you very much. So maybe just no second for question.